obviously there's like a little bit of traffic in that area because like so Morgana's apartment is an apartment building, kind of like in like the nicer part of downtown, but this is clearly a fairly significant crime, being as a well-known and fairly wealthy member of the community's home was targeted in a very public way. And so there are a fair number of cop cars around. You don't see any blockade like personnel at this point in time. It seems like either they haven't gotten there or whatever, but they're not around currently. Which is a little bit odd because normally, because they specialize in superhuman sort of like suspects, normally they would show up to this kind of thing at the very least to kind of like horn in and like get hired to deal with the situation. That doesn't seem to be the case yet. So right now you really only have to worry about the cops. There's also a crowd kind of gathered outside and things like that. So you have to park like kind of a couple blocks away and then hoof it the rest of the way. But yeah, you walk up on a scene with like, you know, there's like police evidence, like placards out and things like that. Like this clearly happened just like a couple hours ago at most. So it happened like basically right as most people were waking up, and then the report kind of got out just shortly after that. So they're still gathering evidence. Like they're taking pictures of like the pattern of like glass shards and everything from the window, which is like 4 stories up, I will add. And you know, there's like some footprints and there's a little bit of blood and you know things like that are kind of like, you know, what they're looking out on the street. And then of course you can see some people up in the like 4th floor window that are kind of going back and forth and like looking out the window and taking pictures and things like that. So still an active crime scene.
Yeah, I'll look for whoever's in charge.
Okay, there's a plainclothes officer that seems to be kind of directing, like, you know, telling people to go do things, and they like come back to him with like information. And he's a relatively young guy, like he's probably early 30s at the most. But he's kind of he's got one of those looks that like he looks a little bit older than he is because he's, you know, probably been working a stressful job for a while. It's clearly, you know, it's clearly aged him a bit. But he seems like on it. He seems competent. From like the little kind of like first impression you get as you approach him, he seems like he's got things, you know, in hand. And yeah, as you start to approach, there's a uniformed officer that kind of like steps just slightly in front of you and puts a hand out, and he says, "Excuse me, sir. Sorry, you can't be here."
Actually, I'm a private investigator. I was hired by the Fayette family to recover the locket that that animal is looking for. So, I feel like we can help each other, detective.
The
Look over the.
Yeah, the uniformed guy kind of looks a little bit skeptical, but he kind of like over his shoulder without looking away from you says, "Hey, detective, this guy says that I don't know, he knows the victim." And the detective kind of like finishes whatever he's doing, and then he comes over. And he kind of like leads you away from the crowd at large, and he says, "You know the victim?"
Yeah, I was hired by the family to recover the locket that Coyote, I believe, the third individual goes by.
Yeah, that's the working name we've got for him.
Yeah, I'll hand him my card. Yeah, my name is
Joseph Gray. By the way, he like extends a hand. He takes your card and shakes your hand at the same time.
I'll shake his hand. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you with your introduction. Go ahead.
Yeah. My name is Nicholas Robinson Martinez. Private investigator. I'm new to the area.
You go by Nick?
She hired me.
Nicholas? Nicky?
Nikki. I think Nikki is fine.
Nikki? All right. Joe. Keep it easy, right?
Joe. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, she hired me only yesterday, actually, to recover the locket.
Okay. What?
And now she is missing.
Hmm. What do you know about this locket? It's kind of weird for someone to like basically shout ransom demands in the street as they're dragging the victim away. So this is not
Just
exactly
strange.
unusual.
Yes. She mentioned that it's been in her family for a very long time. It's very
Okay.
important to the family.
He kind of like, you know, he's a notebook out and he's kind of taking some notes. He says, "Do you know what this amulet looks? This locket, this you know necklace, pendant, whatever it is. Do you know what this looks like?"
I assume she showed me a picture, right, or something.
Yeah, she gave you a picture. If
Yeah.
I didn't explicitly state that before, I'll say that yeah, she would have given you a picture so you know what the heck you're looking
Yeah.
for.
And I'll have that with me. So yeah, be like, yeah, this actually right here.
Okay.
I'm sure there's plenty of high society photos of her wearing it.
He tucks his notebook away. He takes his phone out and snaps a picture of the front of the photo and the back of the photo. Not that there's anything on it, but he just kind of like does that to be thorough.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, "Hold on a second, okay?" And
Yeah.
he walks over to one of the other cops. And he's like, "Hey, Bill, do me a favor. Check the apartment for this." And he airdrops the picture to the other cop. He's like, just check the place, see if you see anything like this, okay? And he's like, yeah, okay. And he immediately heads into the building to go check that out. And Detective Gray comes back. He's like, sorry, just got to get the jump on these things as early as possible.
Oh, I completely understand.
So it's an heirloom.
Yes.
And it went missing. When did you say? I think it was.
I have it.
Go ahead.
I have it. Last time you said 3 days ago, but the party was a month ago. Is there a discrepancy?
I thought it was 3 weeks ago. Did I say 3
Okay,
days?
I wrote day. Maybe you said weeks. We can change. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll retcon that to weeks because it was supposed to be weeks.
Yeah.
I probably just gave you days incorrectly last time.
3 weeks. Yeah, it went 3 weeks ago. Is when it was stolen from her.
Or maybe she just spoke wrong. She's a lot older than she was, a couple of weeks ago. So, he's like, okay, all right. She only came to you now.
I believe
she reported stolen.
I don't believe so. You know rich people, though.
Yeah, I know. All right, let me. He takes his phone out. He sends another quick text. He's like, "I'm just gonna have my one of my clerks check to see if a report was filed under that name." All right. Anything else you can tell me? Did the locket go missing from the apartment?
She was at a party at a Brock Kentman's house. I believe he's a reporter in the town, in the city.
He kind of yeah, he works for my dad. And he kind of starts jotting some stuff down. He's like, my dad's the editor over at the Portent, so yeah, I know.
Oh.
I know Brock. He's a douche. And he kind of says that kind of under his breath as he's taking notes.
I'll take your word for it.
All right. Well,
but that's. She was at the party and went swimming, and when she went to recover her items, it was missing. A lot. And correct correct my brain. They took everything, right? They took her purse and everything, or did they just take the locket?
Oh, I don't remember if I specified that in the first session because it's been a little over a week now.
Yeah.
I don't know that she specified whether they took everything. We're gonna say that they didn't. And if that
Okay,
contradicts what I
just
said earlier, then we'll retcon what I said earlier.
yes. Comic books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Classic comics. Wait a second. That doesn't make sense from this issue to the next. I guess we're just gonna run with it.
Yeah, but when she went to recover her things, the locket was gone.
All right. I mean, you've only been investigating this for like what 24 hours. I don't know if you have any leads. I mean, this Coyote guy is clearly involved, but I imagine he's not the one who stole it. So you can see, is
that was my lead.
Street.
Was him. So if he obviously doesn't have it, if he resorted to this, I do have unconfirmed reports of a mystery figure entering Mr. Kentman's property that night. I'm new to the area, and I don't know all of the local extracurricular operators. And I'll describe that Cal figure again. Like, do you recognize this person? So, is it a local vigilante of some sort? Villain? I don't...
You know what?
Interesting.
Yeah, he kind of thinks for a second. He says, no. Honestly, I mean, if it were up to me, I'd outlaw all of them, lock them all up. But, all right. Well, look, Nikki, I appreciate it. I know that, PIs, cops don't always necessarily get along. I appreciate you being so willing to cooperate and share information. I know that you obviously have a vested interest in the outcome here.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a woman in danger, and we should do all that we can to make sure she returns home safely.
Yeah, we should. And he kind of gestures over his shoulder, like at the other cops. He's like, I just want to be clear. I don't want you going anywhere near the situation now. Like, you've given your information to us. It's in our jurisdiction. We've got this. Am I clear on that?
I understand. If you need help, I am pretty good at this. If you're looking for a consultant.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Sorry to come off kind of strong there. Just sometimes you get these, like these vigilantes. They think that they're better than the cops. They go and get themselves shot in some alleyway or whatever, trying to play hero. And, I don't want to see that happen to you. I don't want it to make our jobs harder. So, sorry for coming off a little strong there.
So I suppose there's no way I can get a look at the scene.
Kind of looks up. He says, you know what? Yeah, I can make that happen. Who knows? I mean, you already talked to the lady. Maybe something will ring a bell when you're walking around. Plus, we know the bad guy's not up there, so you're not going to get yourself in any kind of trouble. Come on. He, tucks his notebook away and he, raises the police tape and gestures you under. We'll cut to you being in the apartment, unless there's anything you do on the way.
No.
Okay. He says, he actually will say on the way up, he's like, you know what? He's, I'll write up a consultation, agreement, It won't be very much, but just to make it official, you're allowed to be here. It's on record. Nothing nothing off books, you know.
Of course,
But hey,
I appreciate it, you know,
it'll be good beer money
and
for you.
yeah, and I did want to actually establish a rapport with the police department. We were going to cross paths at some point, working in, you know, similar fields. So,
Yeah, well, I gotta say, like I know a lot of guys on the force. They have some stuff to say about PIs and like bounty hunters and stuff like that. But you guys take some load off of us, which I appreciate because we already have enough work. So
absolutely, yeah. There's no reason for you to be up all night taking pictures of people cheating on their spouses.
exactly. Or those missing people that turn out to not be missing people. They just decided they were getting stifled by an overbearing mom or whatever.
Exactly.
And as you guys get up to the apartment, he's like, "All right, guys, clear out. Give us the room for a minute." Um, and they all seem like they're happy to like go take a break and grab some coffee because it's pretty early in the morning still. And he's like, "Obviously, don't move anything. Try not to touch anything. Otherwise, feel free to take a look around." And he like is there in the room with you. He's kind of keeping an eye on you.
Yeah. They broke out. Did he break in or out of the window?
He broke out the window. Apparently, after he grabbed her, he jumped through the window with her. The blood on the street. I mean, this is just a guess at this point, but I'm willing to bet that it's her blood. Older folks, thinner skin,
Yeah.
shards of glass everywhere. So, luckily, it doesn't
course.
seem to be too much. I don't think she was hurt too badly, but.
Were there signs of forced entry?
Yeah, actually, there was a. Looks like the fire escape over at the bedroom. He kind of like leads you through, like down the hall into the bedroom. He says it looks like he forced his way in here. Either used like a knife or, I mean, I don't know. This guy might have claws, from what I've heard. So maybe used his claws, but he basically tore up the windowsill on the outside ledge there until he could get at the lock, and then he ripped the lock out. So. Didn't break the glass. This was probably almost as loud. I don't know why he didn't just break the glass. Would have been quicker, but who knows with these guys.
Of course. All right. So I'm gonna like stand near the bed and just look like I'm taking in the scene, and I want to like just kind of let my arm hit like the nightstand or something. And postcog.
Okay. You know what? Yeah, we'll say that he's keeping an eye on you, and then like all of a sudden his phone rings, and he's like, "Oh, hold on a second." He takes his phone out and kind of turns slightly to the side, and he's like, "Hey, yeah, no report filed at all, huh?" And you checked the last name Fayette, not just Morgana Fayette? Okay, check under Brock Kentman. And he kind of gives like Brock's address. He's like, go ahead and run that for me. See if any like stolen items were reported from or filed from there. And kind of gives you the chance to do like that, or like just interact with something else in the room if you want to. But it'll be relatively quick, but it's your call if you want it to be the nightstand, or the bed, the windowsill, whatever.
The bed might be the best choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to go ahead and give me
Let's try to get it. Yeah.
If you want to go ahead and give me a post-cognition action, which will be intellect-based.
Right. You're welcome.
Yes. Now, see, that's not as bad for you as it could be because that's the highest Doom card in the deck. And I'm going to draw a card from my deck. It probably won't be another 10. It'll be something else. But, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And that I could see that event possibly coming in handy later. All right, so that will go over here. And you can go ahead and draw your card back. All right. So, that's, what, a 19?
Yep.
Okay. So you get a flash of that same guy, that coyote guy that you ran into at Brock's place, who, you see him much more clearly in this vision because now you've interacted with him in person. You've seen him, it just kind of helps him stand out a little bit more. You see a woman, or like a sort of a feminine figure in the bed, but it doesn't look like a person. It almost looks like this really captivating, almost kind of like light show in kind of humanoid form. It's almost like an aura that like almost like superimposes over Morgana's like outline or silhouette. And as he kind of like, grabs her out of bed and you kind of hear like the faint echoed like shouting, like, kind of a scream, him snarling and threatening her and demanding to know where the necklace is. And then like there's kind of like the vision of the two of them kind of like they move out of your frame of view and you hear the sound of like, basically moving down the hallway, getting further away, and then the shattering of glass. But there is that sort of like, that like after image when you look at like a bright light and you kind of like blink and look away, and so you kind of get that same visual sort of sensation like leading off frame in the direction that she went, or the direction she was dragged, I should say.
Interesting.
And when the vision ends, that sort of like weird visual like dead spot in your frame of vision kind of remains. And if you like, as you follow it with your eyes, it almost feels like it's not drawing your vision like to it, but it's sort of like as you look at it more close, like more directly, and you kind of follow it, it feels like it's filling in that gap in your vision, almost like it's shrinking just a tiny, tiny bit if you follow along that trail.
Yeah. And I'll follow it definitely, but when he was grabbing her and asking about the locket, I'm guessing she said she had no idea where it is.
Yeah, she's she basically is like, I don't know, someone stole it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll follow the weird light show.
Okay. You're kind of like focused on that for a second, so you don't necessarily notice when Joe first kind of like says, what are you doing? But then like he comes up behind you and kind of like touches you on the elbow, and he's like, hey, what's going on? Even as he startles you like out of that focus, like that same, like you kind of if you turn around to look at him, that you get the sense that like little like blotch of darkness in your vision is still hovering behind you, but it's not impairing your ability to see because you're not looking at it anymore, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. A hunch. I had just a feeling.
It's like that hunch. Anything you want to share with us?
It's too thin. I can't. I mean, you know how it is. Like there's something I'm missing,
Something
but I can't
there,
quite.
You can't quite figure out what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I hate that feeling.
All right. Well, he pulls out a card and hands it to you. He says, "You've got my number. If that hunch solidifies, you get a better idea. Feel free to, reach out.
Of course.
And, if we find anything we think might help you find this locket, we'll throw you a bone, you throw us a bone if you can help us find the lady, and
Yeah,
everybody goes home happy, right?
of course. There's no reason for us to be antagonistic.
Yeah,
We can work together in this.
exactly. I mean, great thing about you guys, you got a license, right? Like you're registered
Yeah,
to do this stuff. You're not like some
absolutely.
masked Yahoo, so it works out
No,
great.
definitely not a masked Yahoo.
All right. Well, hey, Nikki, shakes your hands. Good to meet you. Good luck, and keep me in the loop.
Of course. And as I'm walking out, I just want to just look at everything and just see if something sparks.
Okay. Give me. This is going to be an intellect action using your criminology skill. Or no, you know what? Make it a willpower action using your criminology skill.
A power.
And
Okay.
observation. Like, you've got 2 skills that might apply, so
Yeah.
you're good. You're covered as far as that goes. But I think this is more of a willpower thing.
Okay. Perfect. I was hoping you'd say willpower. All right, that could have been better, but it's still that's 19.
19, or your willpower is a 7, right? Plus
Wait, hold on.
16.
I forgot how math works.
I forget how math
9,
works all the time, so.
16 with skill. Okay, and
Okay.
then yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
I mean, ew.
Is that
Who
another
invited
Doom
this guy?
card? I love it. Okay.
It is.
Um, so 16, but you've got the skill. Okay. Um, nothing else physical in the apartment stands out to you. However, you do note, like, as you walk out, like, through the living room back towards the door, you do note that weird kind of, like, mirage trail thing like, it basically goes to the front window that's broken out and goes out and down to the street. Um, like, it's very clearly, like, an unbroken trail that, like, if you look at it, you can see the path that she took. Um,
Huh.
and that it doesn't seem like you get the feeling if you were to wait an excessive amount of time, that's going to go away. But for the
Mm-hmm.
moment, it seems like it's sticking around long enough that you might be able to get at least, an idea as to where she
Yeah.
is. The other thing you notice as you leave the building is that a one of the uniformed cops that's kind of like doing crowd control. He answers his phone. He kind of like scans the crowd, and then kind of like looks at you, and then quickly kind of looks away and continues talking on his phone, then puts it away, talks to his partner, and then like starts kind of like he takes his cap off and he starts like walking through the crowd and you know like someone approaches him. He's, oh, sorry, ma'am, I'm on a union mandated break. I can't you know and he kind of like wanders after you. Okay, so yeah, you follow it, and it's sort of like not to be too cliche, but it's sort of doing a bit of a monologue, like a villainous monologue thing, which is very much a Professor Calamitous like mainstay, but isn't actually saying anything. It's basically it's like the chat GPT of villainous monologues. It's noticeably kind of bland and non-specific while still technically fulfilling the requirements. Um, and yeah, like originally you may not have picked up on it previously, but like because you noted that it was not actually calamitous, it you're able to kind of pick up on that now. So, yeah, as you're getting closer, the large robot that is kind of assembling the smaller one finishes and kind of like uh, sets it sets the smaller robot in line with the others, and then Calamitous kind of well, the faux Calamitous, as he's walking by, looks up and he kind of does like the two claps, and the large robots suddenly, like, all the compartments close and like the tools all retract and it closes up, and then you notice that seams start to appear, making like forming basically like exact exact like the same size cubes all around it, and then all those cubes individually kind of like, you know, pop out into the smaller robots that were being assembled, and they all kind of like scramble down like this human pyramid of robot pyramid, I guess. And then they all like kind of move off to the side and kind of stand, you know, sort of like in a couple of rows with the other ones that were just assembled. And at that point, you remember more of the specifics that Calamitous, that you'd kind of like picked up on over the time, and that was that Calamitous wasn't putting all of his eggs in one basket with creating you. Calamitous was also creating other options for making sort of like watered down photocopies, basically, and that included creating some robotic minions that could stand in for him using like this very sophisticated combination of like sort of like holographic like projectors to project the image of him around them, and kind of like, you know, bending lights and sensing what's behind them and projecting that image in front, so that anywhere that Calamitous wasn't wide enough to like make up the space of the robot, looks like you're just seeing past them instead. And it's very sophisticated stuff, but they are all supposed to be modular, and they are able to integrate into each other to create larger versions of themselves. And as is traditional for the era of comic books that we're replicating, he has dubbed it Stackotron.
I love it.
So, you know, it's basically like a little walking, self-replicating robot, like assembly line robot.
Okay.
Sort of, I guess. Now that I'm saying it, think kind of like Master Mold from X-Men for the Sentinels.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
not as large and imposing as Master Mold is. This one looks relatively innocuous. I'm sure it's perfectly safe.
Well, you know, the cube shape makes it seem a lot more friendly than the giant stompy deathbot.
Exactly. That's probably on purpose, to some extent. I'd forgotten about that. Okay, yeah, cool. I mean, it's fine. Don't even worry about it. Okay, so yeah, I mean, at this point, it's pretty clear that this faux Calamitous is stalling. Like it. I don't know if you had any additional questions that you're asking or anything like that, but it's very clearly just saying things to fill time.
Yeah, I think after this whole disassembly act, when the robots are all lined up and so on, I think Compiler will sort of break into its monologue, just gently, because you said it was just kind of going and going and going,
Yeah.
and say, I certainly appreciate the grandness of your vision. However, I feel like I would have difficulty encouraging a prisoner to talk if you were to continue explaining your vision to me continually. Perhaps I should speak with her? Actually, before I do, what is it that you wish her to answer?
We seek all the information that she possesses regarding Project Facelift. this particular construction is very valuable to me. You probably not lost on you the fact that it said "we" at first. Now it's corrected itself to me. It would represent a leap of probably a year in the development of my own replacement for you.
Surely it could not match the brilliance of your adaptive hologram generators.
Oh, but it can, in fact. Whoever designed this is, well, it's a team, most likely, but whoever designed it, clearly brilliant.
Fascinating. Well, then, yes, I would be happy to talk to her about that. In fact, we were already discussing it in the briefest of terms before we were interrupted.
That's a nice way of putting it. All right. All right. It kind of hesitates for a moment, and then finally says, "She's not here."
I see. Well, then I apologize for wasting your time. Have a pleasant day. And I think it's just going to turn to leave.
You may not leave. The speech pattern in it becomes like distinctly more like the robotic voice at the door when you first came in.
I fail to see a justification for this. If I cannot serve the purpose to which we agreed, then what is the point of me continuing to stay?
You're the property of Professor Calamitous, and you will be corrected.
I see.
Please power down and wait patiently.
Yeah, I think there's no way compiler's going to do that, so I'm not super sure how well this is going to work. I think it's just going to ignite its flight systems and try to fly straight up and smash out of the roof.
Okay. Give me. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna draw a card, and that's gonna be. Achilles heel. I think that's gonna require me to pull up a thing here. I am going to need you. I guess this would be an. I'm going to need you to give me an intellect action.
Okay.
I am actually going to say that this is where your computer link is going to hurt you, actually. So that's going to add a bit of additional difficulty to what you're trying to do here. In 5 points, plus the 8 on the narrator card is 13, plus whatever the base difficulty is to resist. What's happening here? I will say that you do have an appropriate skill for this because you've got the computer's skill. So it's basically gonna work to prevent you from being like basically you're being hacked via this this Bluetooth connection that you had, and so you're trying to defend against this intrusion. So we're going to call it an intellect action using your computer skill. So that will make it easier for you to succeed.
Okay.
But I am going to need you to give me an intellect action for this.
Okay.
I'm going to. Oh, okay. Interesting.
What an ominous sound. Um, yeah, I suppose then, you said before, and I'm sorry, I haven't actually used this, but you said there was a way to play two cards, push yourself somehow?
Yeah, so basically you can play one card from your hand as a push card. That reflects. Yeah, you basically don't redraw that card at the end of the action. It reflects sort of like pushing yourself to your limits and a little bit past. So you hurt yourself in order to get the extra boost
Okay.
on or the extra bonus on your card play. And then after you play your push card, you play your actual card. So if that's a card of the appropriate suit, you get the normal like flip the top card of the deck,
Right.
and all that stuff. So
Okay.
and you wouldn't redraw until the next time you would normally heal, which is normally after like a big fight,
Right.
which would probably just be at the end of whatever this combat encounter is, assuming it turns into that. So, yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, then I think that's my move here because, well, bluntly, if I end up hacked, then that really stops it from being a combat encounter, doesn't it?
I mean, it would avoid getting into a fight, yes.
Suppose so, yeah. So let's go ahead and drop that, and then play my standard 6 on top of that for a 21.
21. Okay, with the. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. With the skill, okay. So. Okay. Yeah, you are. Yeah, it would be. That would make more sense. Okay. Yeah, you feel like this headache might not be the right term. Basically, you get like this kind of static, like sensation, kind of on like in your awareness, and that feels like someone is like very clearly like interfering with your programming, and you very quickly kind of like manage to block all that. Like you put up firewall and you kind of readjust
Yeah.
your security measures and things like that. And again, this all happens, that quick.
Yeah.
Um, and you manage to shut out the influence. I will also need an action from you for your flight action to try and get away.
Sounds good. Do you want to redraw that first card before or after the flight action?
So you will not redraw yet because it's still technically the same
Okay.
turn. One was a defensive action. This is your active action.
Sounds good. And that'll give me a 13.
Okay. A 13 with your flight. Let's see. That'll actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
That's
just
okay.
taking it as a strength action. With flight, it is less than that.
Yeah, that'll be an 8. Okay. So yeah, this is going to be sort of a pile-on situation where we're going to use some special rules for this. Basically, when if you go to make an attack, you can theoretically hit multiple things at the same time by just dividing your card play amongst however many targets you want to hit. In addition, we're going to use the rule that I think makes sense. So all of these Stackotron mini robots decide to, like, as you start to blast off. Does Compiler have a jetpack type of thing that he uses to fly, or is it more of a is like an anti-grav thing? Like, what's the?
I think what we said last time was that it was like built-in rockets that sort of just hinge out to offer control. I don't
Okay,
recall a lot of discussion.
so basically like
Like,
little thruster things.
yeah, like boot
Okay.
jets with then just onboard thrusters that pop in and out wherever it needs to turn or whatever.
Okay, so sort of Iron Man-esque then.
A little bit, yeah,
Okay.
but less with the repulsor beams and more spaceship style.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, as like your rockets ignite and start to blast off, these little mini Stachotron robots like suddenly like surge forward and like reach out to grab you, and so they are going to have that. But there are how many of these are active at once? 9 are active at once. Oof. Okay. So you got an 8. And
Yep.
they got an 8. All right. Yeah. So you start to blast off, and you got the passenger stunt for your flight. So that actually will kind of edge things in your favor here. So as you start to blast off, a couple of these robot things like kind of like rush you. And they kind of get in each other's way and prevent. Most of them aren't able to kind of like get close enough to really grab onto you. A couple of them though, like they're the little, like their little manipulator like gripper claw things. Like the compartment opens up and the claw reaches out and it kind of grabs onto you. And so 2 of them are actually going with you as you start to fly. Sadly. Well, I shouldn't say sadly. You are able to basically like get to the top of the room, but I will need a strength action or something similar to open the ceiling enough for you to get out because it's again kind of reinforced ceiling. But first, go ahead and draw your cards back. You'll get 2 cards to redraw from this exchange.
Well,
Strength and agility cards are good things to get here. Ooh, hey, it's your cunning scheme. Look at that. That's the event. It's your cunning scheme to not have a cunning scheme. Also, the aura is a positive aura, which means you heal. So if you are down any cards, you draw 1 card back.
oh, well,
So
how lovely.
that push was well timed. And another good agility card. You can't argue with that.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so yeah, the 2 robots are clinging onto you. They are going to try to like incapacitate you. So actually, what are they going to do? They're basically just like they're basically just like wailing on you at this point. These robots are clearly not like super sophisticated when they're at this level of deconstruction. But yeah, so that's what they're going to do. It's going to be difficult for you to dodge that, but I guess not impossible. You could like try to throw them off or whatever. What are you planning on doing this turn?
Well, I guess basically the thought I had was since they had that connection to Calamitous before, since I intercepted that transmission, while they're still hanging on, if I could like access their system somehow, backtrace it, figure out where he is instead of.
Sure. So I mean, you've got a couple options for how you could do that. One, you've got your alchemy, which is limited to objects only, but
Right.
it does mean you can transmute technological things to other technological things. So you could, if you wanted to, try to change one of these things from a Stachotron robot into a device that would allow you to basically trace it or whatever.
Okay.
Alternatively, so that is going to be a little bit harder because you have to overcome whatever defense they have to that. Alternatively, you could use your computer link to try to just, like you said, kind of hack in and
Right.
access the information that they have, which is probably going to be easier because most non-sentient robots are not terribly good at resisting that kind of thing. I'm not saying guaranteed one way or the other, but most likely that's probably the situation you're looking at.
I think that's the thing that makes, or hacking into them is the thing that makes the most sense to me based on the information I have right now. Like,
Okay.
I appreciate the device idea, but since I've already got this lead, that's probably where I'm going to follow, you know?
You could transmute one of them into like a bomb and then leave it behind. And then, no, sorry. All right, so yeah, give me This is going to be a computer link action in this case.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and drop that blue card.
All right. Yeah, these guys are not great at resisting this kind of thing. Actual Stackatron would be a little bit better. Okay, because that is an intellect card for an intellect power, you're going to draw the top card of the deck and put that on, and you're going to add that to what you've got here.
Ready?
It's another blue card, so you're going to draw the next card of the deck, and you're going to add that on there as well.
No, I'm okay with that.
And okay, so that is going to be 14 plus your computer link of 5 is 19, and of course you've got the computer's skill. Okay. All right, yeah, you manage. I mean, that's very good, especially compared to their resistance, which is, yeah, okay. You're able to basically gain access to memory banks. These guys all seem to be on kind of a shared network, kind of like hive mind, like shared, sort of like a file directory type of thing. If you were at an office building and everybody in the building's on the same file directory,
The Calamitous intranet.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And so you're able to get in there, kind of copy like the communication log from the last little bit, and save that onto your internal hard drive. I'm also going to need I'm going to say this is a flight action rather than an agility action, as you are basically trying to prevent them from getting enough leverage and purchase to really hit you hard.
Yeah.
So either way, it's an agility action, but your flight is just, I was going to say lower than your agility. Is it lower than your agility? Oh, by 1.
Yeah.
So it's actually not that much of a drawback. But either way, if you would do me a favor and play an agility card for me.
I would love to. Go ahead and throw that out there.
All right, and then you can draw the top card of the deck.
Oh, goodness. Okay. For some reason, I forgot that flight was an agility power.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so 8 plus your 5 is 13. I'll discard those. Go ahead and draw your 2 cards back. So 13 and... Okay, so that's... Okay. You aren't quite able to shake them off of you, but you do manage to kind of you pull some tight turns and some barrel rolls and stuff like that, and so they kind of have to focus more on holding on to you than they can on on smashing you. So
yeah,
you manage to not take any. You avoid taking any damage this round. However, the other Stackatron minis have started to I can't do the Transformers noise, but they started to combine each and stack up into the larger version, which is this next turn going to try and grab you.
Okay.
All right. So the next action, Wild Ride. That event is too good to not give you the benefit of. To not give you a little bit of a leg up here. So why don't you tell me what you're trying to do? Basically, the Stackatron is trying to reach out and grab you. This thing is, again, it's massive. It's probably about 4 times your height if you were standing on the ground, and the grabbing claw that it has is 3-pronged, 2 fingers and a thumb. Basically, it reaches out to grab you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna need a. Well, I need to know what you're gonna do this turn. And I'm gonna need some sort of defensive action as well. So.
Yeah. So I think initially Compiler just wanted to get out of there. It wasn't planning on this being a fight. It was hoping to just smash through the ceiling and call it a day. But that's clearly not going to happen now. So, given that I just managed to infiltrate the Calamitous intranet, I'm thinking maybe it would try to since it had that access, see if it can use that to upload some sort of virus, keep these things from maybe mess up their targeting systems somehow.
Okay. All right. I think that is going to be another computer link action, but you do have the computer's skill, so that is going to help you once again here. But yeah, I think that's the power that I'm going to ask you to use in that particular case.
Sounds good.
So yeah, go and give me an intellect action, please. Luckily, you
Sure
pulled
thing.
another intellect card on that last draw, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, hopefully I can keep that up.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, just whatever kind of result I can get out of this, whether it's shutdowns or even just throwing off their targeting, I'm just trying to mess them up in whatever way I can.
Okay. So that's a 12 plus your computer link of 5 is a 17. This guy has a... Okay. Yeah, you aren't necessarily able to get like a virus in there because I don't know that you walk around with like viruses ready to go.
Yeah, definitely
Okay.
not.
But you are able to basically like the equivalent of it for me non computer guy is you basically like move some of the important like process folders into like different directories that causes the whole thing, like the whole OS just kind of goes and kind of like freezes like that for a minute while it tries to figure out what's going on. It's still going to try to grab you, so you still have to avoid that. So I will need a this is going to be a flight action because you're in flight. So
Makes sense. We're just going to keep that going right as well as we can.
just keep throwing those high agility cards out there. Ooh.
And I don't get to choose if I use that, do I?
No, you do not. That just goes to me. So I'm going to draw myself a card there and hang on to that for a rainy day. So that is a 6, 7 is a 13 plus your flight of 5 is an 18. You do not have aerial combat to reduce the difficulty there. Okay, so 18 against his... he's not really using that, so that doesn't... Okay, so... Well, that doesn't, I guess, really affect you, so 18. Yeah, so as the claw, like, reaches out to grab you, you kind of, like, hit it with this weird, rearranging of those critical files. So it doesn't manage to like grab you and hold on to you, but it does hit you pretty hard. You are going to get hit for a total of a 23. So that's going to be minus your strength and whatever other defenses you have, which is just strength. So that's 13 points of damage. Go ahead and draw your 2 cards back.
Alrighty, let's see how this goes.
And then you'll need to discard 13 points worth of cards, which is going to be really tough for you under the circumstances.
Looks like if I discard everything, I just make it.
Actually, you don't even have to discard everything. You can do the 8 and the 5. And that leaves you with the 3 of intellect.
Oh, yep, I was doing my math wrong.
So, just barely. Like, if it had been 14 points of damage, you would have been out of luck. Now, you did have to discard that for damage. I can choose whether I'm going to turn that into an ongoing injury, like a long-term injury, or if I want to take that as card play to draw a card. I'm going to use it to draw a card because in single-player games, it's a little bit rude for me to be like, you have even fewer cards to work with now. So I'll just hang on to it for complications later.
Fair enough.
All right, so I am going to use the Wild Ride event here to essentially dispose of the 2 Stackertron minis that were clinging onto you as this claw like hits you. It kind of like sends you careening into a wall, and like they hit the wall and they shatter everywhere because that was How much was it? 23 minus their strength of 7. That's more than their health. Yeah, the impact, like, they shatter. Like, they leave, like, gouges and dents in the wall, and parts just explode everywhere. Yeah, I think that's... Okay, so that's going to go away. We go into the next turn. Okay. So basically what happens there is, you know, he goes to tackle you. You kind of try to phase at, like, he knocks into you, but before his momentum carries you to the ground, like, you kind of phase and he continues through, and you basically, like, solidify, turn, and you, like, smack him on the back of the head. And he kind of, like lands on the ground, kind of, like, starts to get up, like, very clearly dazed. That is going to let him heal a little bit, so he's going to recover some hit points. Alright. That is... And then he is going to... he's going to start, like, changing forms. Like, he, like, you know, he kind of, like, opens his mouth and, like, bellows, and then it, like, it very quickly shifts from, like, a human sound to a very large beast sound. And, you know, his skin starts to turn kind of like slimy, kind of rubbery, and then, like, it, like, scales sprout. He starts to, like, elongate and all that stuff. It's going to take him a turn to do this. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, he can't do this instantly. So, what would you like to do while he's transforming?
Roughly how big was he the last time he was a snake? Was like 20, 30 feet long?
Yeah, about the diameter of a city bus, but twice as long.
Yeah, that's just going to wreck campus and hurt people. I'm running.
I mean,
Pull out.
you do have a turn before he takes this form where you might be able to knock him out.
I'm going to try and knock him out. I'm going to hit him as hard as I possibly can.
Okay.
Right, you know, same thing, right in the back of the head, right about where the same spot I hit last time.
Okay. Go ahead and... Yeah, you got the perfect card for it.
Got that. And I dropped that.
Ooh, I like that event. Okay.
Somebody's showing this. Great.
Of course. It's in today's day and age. Who doesn't have a camera out whenever something happens? Okay, so what is that? A 15 total, right? Because that's a 5, and your strength of 5 is a 15.
Well, with my bow staff makes it 16.
16 for the damage, yeah. Okay, so there's that. He's definitely not going to get out of the way of that.
Can I Hail Mary to smack him a second time?
So technically you could push and then a Hail Mary, but that wouldn't really help you in this situation.
I haven't pushed yet this time, so I don't know. Can I smack him twice? I guess because he's not attacking me.
Generally, no, unless you have certain abilities. Like usually, like there's a strength skill called contingent or called boxing, where it allows you to attack twice, but you divide your strength score between the two attacks.
Okay.
And there is an agility skill called contingent attack that basically does the same thing. Let me check something real quick for martial arts. This changes a bit to agility. Reduce difficulty, reduce damage from falling. If it doesn't attack you, she can reduce difficulty catching a thrown object that can be left. You know what? I will. Yeah, I'm going to call it a Pyrrhic victory. So I drew the card to check the aura, and it's a positive card. It happens to just happens to be the 9 of Doom, though, and the event there is a Pyrrhic victory. So we're going to say that yes. So this attack that you did was 16 points of damage. Minus his 6 strength, because he's not in his sea serpent form yet, is 10 points of damage, and he had 11 health left. So that puts him at 1. I am going to say that because you want to immediately follow it up with another attack, that yes, you can do that. So you hit him, and then you kind of like, on the backswing, you hit him again. Unfortunately, he finishes kind of going into sea serpent form as he gets knocked unconscious, which basically throws you through the wall of the school, through the windows into one of the classrooms, which will knock you unconscious.
Okay.
You will wake up a short time later, with Professor Davis standing standing in front between you and several reporters and campus security, as you are you're clearly being tended to by EMTs, and your mask is still on and everything like that, and Professor Davis is very clearly trying to prevent anybody from approaching and figuring out who you are, because she knows, and she certainly doesn't want to have your secret be discovered like this.
Yeah, she's one of the few people who knew I had powers before this started.
Exactly. Go ahead and draw your 3 cards back as you've woken up.
Okay.
You hear several of the reporters kind of just rapid fire, asking questions to Professor Davis, and they kind of are akin to or they amount to the following few questions. One of them is, what was that creature? Where did it go? Who is the masked woman that that seemed to be fighting it? Those kinds of questions generally. The implication being that something happened to the monster, to the sea serpent, to Leviathan.
Great. Oh God, I hope it went back into the heart.
Well, I will say that the event from last exchange when you knocked him out was eternal torment. So, so yes, from a narrative perspective, that is what happened. He was thrown back into the heart once he was knocked unconscious. So
well, that's a positive.
Yeah, exactly. Hooray!
Hooray! Kalu Kalay. All right, so Ghost is going to stand up slowly.
Okay.
And then, where am I in relation to am I in a lecture hall abutting one of the hallways, or is there another classroom on the other side of the wall?
So you're on a gurney, and you're basically outside, in front of the history wing, with the EMT kind of checking your blood pressure and stuff like that, and as you wake up, the EMT, she kind of looks at you, and she glances over her shoulder, and she's like just lay still for a minute. If they know you're awake, they're gonna mob you.
Great. Oh, I appreciate that you know what you're doing.
She's like, oh yeah, I moved here from New York to get away from all this superhero stuff, and look where that got me. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, VU13 up there is apparently really, really active. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I guess this is small potatoes compared to some of the stuff I've seen. And she goes through the kind of the battery of questions to assess your the Glasgow Coma scale, see how well you're doing. Obviously, you're pretty good because you're answering questions, but she still goes through the whole check. Make sure you don't have a concussion.
She can't check my pupils for dilation. So
that is true. That is a very good point. She does kind of by reflex take out her little light and click it on, and then kind of go and she clicks it off and puts it back in her pocket, and she says, I'll just have to assume that your pupils are okay.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying.
She says, so do you have union coverage? Because otherwise this is going to be a pretty hefty bill. And she's writing some stuff down on a
I haven't heard from the union yet. This was the first time I ever had to do anything, and that thing needed to be fought. I'm going to hope I get union coverage. Can they backdate it?
Well, hold on a second. She goes back to the ambulance, and she comes back a minute later, and she hands you a business card. It's Deirdre Fitzpatrick, Vigilantes Union representative, Portland, Oregon, like phone number, email address. She says, call her. The union vote actually hasn't gone through yet, so I mean, I guess technically you might not be able to get union coverage. But assuming the vote passes, if you sign on before the vote happens, then you should be fine.
Okay. That sounds like a good idea, because this was messed up. I'm just glad that he didn't transform inside the building.
Yeah, I get the feeling that would have been a pretty significant amount of damage. My partner has been checking some of the other students and everything like that, but everybody else seems more or less okay. A few, cuts from some of the glass, but otherwise...
Yeah, he had this weird thing that it seemed to, like, make everybody afraid, and they panicked.
Oh, I assumed that was because he turned into some sort of giant monster. Which, by the way, what the hell was that?
I think he said I think it was called Leviathan. Yeah, don't ask. I gotta dig
isn't that like a big sea monster or something like that?
Yeah, that was a pretty big sea monster.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, take one of those double long buses and make it double that again in length. Could have swallowed me whole if if he'd succeeded.
Well, I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad everybody seems to be okay. Do you want to be transported to the hospital?
No. If there's nothing broken, nothing serious, I'll be good.
She kind of looks back at your eyes again, and she's like, I mean, I can't be 100% sure, but you seem like you're okay, so...
They've been like this for a while. I have a trick. I'll see if it works once I get home.
Okay. Well, hey, good luck. And she kind of looks back at the reporters, and then she says, "Are you ready for me to cut you loose?"
Yeah, I'll just be a ghost.
Good luck with that. And she unclicks the straps. And she holds the gurney still so that you can slip off of it. She's standing between you and the reporter so that you can kind of if you want to, you can go into the building.
Yeah, I just step off and I walk through the wall.
Okay. Man, if I were mean, I would make you make a willpower check to see if that works, but I won't.
It's too cinematic too.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a little bit more slapstick in tone if you were to just face plant into the wall as you try to make your exit.
Just do this bounce off of it. That would be hilarious. But
so yeah, you walk through the wall into the building. The reporters are I'll kind of go a little bit nuts over that. They're like, oh my gosh, she just walked through the wall. Like, oh, who is she? Like, well, what's her name? Like, you kind of hear the barrage of questions again before you.
And the only clip on the evening news is she told me she was a ghost.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the EMT would probably say that. So that's perfect. Yeah, she's like, oh, I can't say anything. She's a patient, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, did she say anything to you? She said the only thing she said is that, she was a ghost or something like that. And yeah, and that'll be how that... Yeah, I like that.
That's how the name gets spread right there.
Yep. So the ghost of Portland University, the ghost of PSU. One of the headlines has got to be spooks at PSU, but spooks is PS, like it's spelled
PSUK.
Yeah, exactly. It's spelled in a way that some copywriter or news someone thought was going to be clever.
The local college paper it looks like SPU. It's PSUks. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's going to give rise to a fair amount of speculation and media frenzy for, at least a day or two. As you're like kind of cleaning everything off the table, and you kind of like look around the room, and you look at the whiteboard, and you're like, "Oh, I should go straighten that. Like, I just go clean that up." You see a couple things that have not been completely erased. You see like a kind of a bullet list, like a partial bullet list, and a couple of the bullet items are like malleable, like reactive, adaptive. What's the word I'm looking for? Wow, my brain has just lost the ability to form words. Predictive. It's clearly like describing the traits of something. And there's bits of like kind of a chemical formula, and it's very clearly a very complex thing that was all written out here. And it's not been, like I said, it's not been fully erased. So if you wanted to look further into it, you could, or if you're just going to clean it, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I'm just going to clean it off because, I mean, why would I care about that? It's not, obviously, it's something Dad's working on. It can't be too bad. But, it is, then again, and if it's something related to something that was stolen from his office, I can just ask him about it tonight when he gets home. So, I mean, I don't live with him, but I, drop by and ask.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. In that case, while you're kind of straightening things up and cleaning off the whiteboard, you do hear two people kind of walking by in the hallway outside that are talking in relatively quiet tones, but they're not like whispering. They're just having a kind of a normal level conversation for a workplace. And you are able to kind of hear it, especially as they get closer to the door. They basically say, whoever did this clearly has some sort of superhuman ability. We haven't been able to figure out exactly what it is, but there's no way that someone would have been able to get past those measures without, at least not in the way that it seems that they did, without it being a powered individual.
And Amber has moved, by the way, to the side of the door that they're going to walk past, and so she can hear better.
And so they kind of compare some notes, and someone's like, "Oh, it was did you pick him up on the camera?" No. Oh, invisibility? It's like, well, that's a big thing that we're considering. They kind of are like bandying back and forth, like what powers might have theoretically been involved, and then they continue on their way.
Huh. And I will actually take a look to see if they were like security people or.
You actually, one of the guys you recognize as the guy that was liaising with the cops on the clip that you saw. The other one's just, he's wearing like a suit.
Okay.
Would you... You know what? Because you're explicitly looking, you do notice that he actually has a... I said it's a suit. That's not entirely accurate. It's a jacket that looks like it's meant to be like, it's meant to blend in for professional attire, but it's clearly some sort of like uniform jacket. And there is a patch on the arm for Blockade Securities Limited.
Okay. And are they aren't the normal security here? The Blockade isn't.
Not that you've ever seen. No.
Okay.
It's you actually know some of the security people because like you check in with them at the desk and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They're all like employees of TechMat.
Right.
Blockade Securities, maybe this is maybe they got a standing contract with the company or something. You're not sure.
Okay.
But you don't normally see these guys around, no.
Yeah, this is bigger than I thought it was. I will. I'm actually going to write a note for my dad. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that because I'll just, like I say, I'll just drive over and see him. It wouldn't seem odd for me to do that. Actually, no, I will write him a note that just says, sorry for bringing Eliza along. She kind of invited herself, and I couldn't figure out a good way to say no. Sorry. And then, yeah, I will again. I sort of did the tidying up. I'm gonna look for clues without it being real obvious. But I'm sure that anything, she probably wouldn't find anything. But also, she just, wouldn't understand anything she found because she doesn't have any science skills. But she's not looking that hard. Mostly, she's looking for memos from other people, like higher ups pressuring him, or anything that seems out of place, and that she is using her journalism for.
Okay. Yeah, I would be willing to say. So it's still a willpower action, but I will say journalism will kind of, tie in here, kind of like following your instincts and like a hunch and stuff like that. One thing I will ask is, how likely is it that Amber knows your dad's password?
I don't think she would.
Okay.
I think that, especially if he didn't want her to have it, she wouldn't have it. If he did, then she would have it. But I think for work stuff, that especially that kind of thing that keeps her, kind of at arm's length about, then,
Okay. So then you kind of look through some of the stuff on his desk. He's got a couple binders and folders with some printouts and things like that. And you don't see anything that seems to be there's actually nothing negative of any kind. There's actually several things where some of his supervisors and some of the executives at the lab are praising him for the work he's done, delivering ahead of deadline, under budget, stellar results. They are just glowing about how well things are going. They're sort of like progress reports, and they speak about it in very vague terms. It's project, serial number, blah blah. It doesn't have anything to indicate what the project might be or anything like that. But it's basically these are kind of cover sheets on responses to reports that he's clearly submitted to the higher ups. And they've got notes in the margins if you look through them, where they ask clarifying questions and yada yada yada. But by and large, it is all very, very positive.
Okay.
Again, there is some science stuff in there, but you just don't know what it means.
Right.
But yeah, that's about all you're able to discern. After a few minutes, you hear your dad and Eliza coming back down the hallway. They're kind of laughing back and forth, and it seems actually they've both kind of eased up a little bit, and they're just having a much less fraught conversation, and they get back to his office, and your dad says, well, it's been a pleasure, Eliza. It really has been great to meet you. It's always nice to know that Amber is working with people who are very clearly good at what they do, and I appreciate the fact that you're sort of offering to mentor her. I think that'll be really good for her. And he says, and you, excellent choice for lunch today. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Are we still on for dinner tonight with Mom?
I'll be honest. I might get caught up a little bit late, but I am going to try my best to be there.
Okay, just give me a text when you're on your way, and
sure.
I'll meet you over there.
All right.
Unless you want to ride. Actually, no, I saw your car out front, so
yeah, I wouldn't want to leave it here. Also, I think your mom will be there, but you know how it is. Sometimes work pulls her away, so... but yeah, I will text you. I've got a meeting I've got to run to. You know the way out. Make sure to turn your visitor's badges at the desk, and he kind of like finger guns you, and like backs out and heads out.
Okay. Finger gun back, because Dad.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, all right. Well, I guess we should head out.
Liza says, yeah, this was great. I've never been in here before. It's a fascinating place. And your dad is very clearly a very smart guy.
He really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I get my brains from.
Honestly, I can see that. I mean, your track record in school was pretty good from everything based on what like your resume said and letters of recommendation and stuff like that. So, you know, not that I've like snooped or anything like that. It's just
it's I'm sure it's in my employment file somewhere. So
yeah. And, you know, especially at a newspaper, people get curious and they start chatting and, you know, new member to the team, that kind of thing.
Well, especially if you're going to, start, if we're going to be co-writers together, co-authors together. So
exactly,
it makes sense to check someone out.
Agreed.
Those journalistic instincts again.
Yes. Sometimes your nose just starts tingling and you have to follow it.
Yeah.
You guys get back to your car as you're kind of having this conversation, and she says, well, actually, I do have a couple of thoughts on, if we were going to write about the break-in, because obviously we need to write something, and, this gives us a little bit of a leg up, especially over Brock. Like, Brock didn't get any of this, so he's going to look like a bit of a dork when we write an article that actually has some substance to it versus his, they didn't give us any comments, and back to you in the studio. She kind of does a very characterized impression of him. But yeah, unless there's anything else you want to do or talk about specifically, I will assume you guys get...
She will basically protest a little bit. It's like, I don't want to feel like I'm using my dad because that feels a little, and I'm sure she's going to then be talked out of that immediately. But she will at least make the protest.
Oh, of course, no, and we'll say it's an anonymous source within the lab, and we won't indicate that you have any kind of a tie to it. It'll be hush hush.
Right, of course.
So, I wouldn't want to get you into any trouble. I wouldn't want to get him into any trouble. I mean, if just looking at it purely from a professional standpoint, and this isn't the only standpoint to look at it from, but just, if we just take that angle, I wouldn't want to get him fired, because then the person that I know at the lab doesn't work there anymore. So, you have to be careful with these things.
Sense? Yeah. Well, I don't want to get him fired because he's my dad.
Exactly. So, we'll be careful with it.
All right.
I'm going to assume that when you get back, you are going to work together on this, getting this article kind of written up.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm presuming she's going to surprise me with stuff that she figured out that I didn't. But yeah. I'll just basically be giving, I also noticed that there weren't enough cops there, and actually, I will mention to her, but say, I don't know if we want to mention it yet, but I did see one of the blockade people there, and I don't know if they're working on this or not, but...
She says, well, that's actually really interesting, because blockade specializes in people with powers. There's a security firm that specializes in safeguarding against people with powers. So I guess that means there's some suspicion that whoever did this has abilities.
Oh, we should probably include that in the article too. But I don't. It's up to you. Do you think we should include blockade being in there because it's kind of sensitive right now? And
well, that is a good point. I mean, that's a bit speculative, which could get us into a little bit of trouble.
Right.
Now, if we had confirmation from anybody that perhaps this was a suspicion they had, then that would carry a little bit more. That would carry a little bit more weight behind it.
Right. Well, why don't we just keep that under our hats for right now, and or keep it in our back pocket for in case something starts coming out, and we'll have a head start on everyone else.
I'll give them a call and ask them if they have an official statement on the matter, just to see if whoever happens to answer the phone might slip up. It usually doesn't work, but sometimes you get lucky. Anyways,
all right.
Go ahead and give me... So there's writing and then there's journalism. I think she's doing most of the writing, whereas the two of you are kind of collaborating on, the information you have and compiling. So give me an intellect action using your journalism skill, if you like.
Right. I hate to leave myself with just Doom cards here, but
yes.
I'll go ahead and use that. And then... So a 10 plus my intellect of 4 is 14.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's... yeah, perfect. It's nothing... Again, it's nothing conclusive. She, in very kind of roundabout ways in the article, she does kind of lead with, there's some speculation involved here, but, these are some of the things that have been observed and yada yada. And she kind of wraps the article up in the same way. So just to kind of shield the paper from liability, she might be a little bit ambitious of a journalist, but at the same time, she's not a tabloid reporter. She's not going to put stuff in there that there isn't legitimate reason to believe, or anything that's not supported.
She's building a reputation. She doesn't want to risk that reputation.
Exactly. And she, in the time that you've worked with Eliza, you know that she actually legitimately does believe in, the news is an important thing because it's, people need to know what's going on so that they can be safe, they can be informed. She does legitimately believe in the importance of journalism. Right. She also happens to be somewhat on the, ambitious side.
Right.
So, matter of fact, you've probably heard her little rant about how she works at a little paper like this because, anybody can work for the New York Times or the New York Post or the Daily Bugle or whatever and, win a Pulitzer. But if you work for a small town paper and you win a Pulitzer, then it's legit. Type of thing. So yeah.
All right. Well, after work, I will head back to Dad's, meet him for dinner.
Okay. Yeah, she basically says oh, have a good night. I'm going to stay late and kind of get this. I'm going to burn the midnight oil and get the article written up. I'll submit it to the editors, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay. And I'll let you know if Dad has anything more, any more information for us.
Okay.
So
she says before you leave, she says, "Okay, serious question, really important.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about it before you answer.
All right.
Alphabetical or seniority? For our names in the order
it
that
should
we
probably
list
be
them.
seniority because you're the. I don't want to make myself seem too important on the article because that would attract more attention to my dad. And like you said, we need to protect our sources.
That's a good point.
Everything.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll submit it with my name first.
All right.
Perfect. She'll work on that, and you are gonna head to meet up with your dad.
Right.
You get there. He's already home. He's kind of in his evening kind of relaxing wear. which is still like, a nice pair of pants and like a polo, and he's one of those very I wouldn't say he's waspy by any means, but he's definitely one of those like I feel most comfortable when I'm kind of put together type of people.
Right.
Some people might seem as a bit of a stuffed shirt, but that's just who he is. So, and he and your mom are cooking dinner and chatting, and he's kind of telling her some stuff about his day and the break-in, and you can tell like over the course of the conversation that she probably knows a fair amount about it already, because she's kind of got that way of like, something interesting happened in your day, she always seems to know about it in advance and is mostly just like trying to get you to confirm to see if you're telling her the truth.
It was probably a running joke when I was growing up that mom always knows everything.
Yes, so, very much so. You would have learned very quickly that it is a big risk to not tell your mom the truth.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably one of the reasons why Amber's so open with people.
Yeah. Because I mean, one thing about your mom is that she is one of those parents who legitimately means it when she says, if you tell me the truth, I'm not going to get mad.
Mm-hmm.
And you have learned over the course of 21 years that if you tell her the truth, she legitimately won't be mad. She might say, this could have been handled better, but she'll always be more solution-oriented than she will emotionally-oriented for it. So,
yeah. And also, when Amber has had experience with telling her mom that I flew today, and her mom was okay with that, another 5 years later saying, Mom, I'm gay, was probably not that big of a deal.
Oh, yeah. That was definitely one of those conversations where your mom knew well before you told her.
Oh, yeah.
She was just like, okay, thank you for telling me, like, very supportive. But, like, a couple years later, she was like, yeah, I already knew that, sweetie. She's like, you're not subtle, my love. But in a gentle way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like a fairly normal evening. They're making spaghetti. Your dad seems pretty at ease about things.
How are you doing? Did they, have more questions and stuff for you when you were after we left, or did you find anything out?
Well, yes. Basically, the entire rest of my day was questions and meetings. Just to make sure that we covered everything. But I mean.
Yeah, I'm sorry I brought Liza along. Like I said, she wouldn't take no for an answer, but
your mom does give your dad a look when you say that, and you immediately realize that your mom didn't know anything about that.
But on the bright side, and I just plow past that, say, but on the bright side, she decided to do a story on the paper, and I'm going to be the co-writer on it. I'm going to get a byline with her. I'm actually going to be an actual journalist, get my name in the paper, as the journalist and reporter on the article. And don't worry, we're trying. We'll keep the connection between us out of it, and make sure you don't get get in trouble for anything there. We're working really hard to make sure that's the case.
Your dad's very, very excited and proud, congratulates you and everything like that. Your mom is a little bit more skeptical, but she's like, "Oh, that's great, honey. I'm so glad to hear that." And she asks a lot of questions about this Eliza person. Again, it's one of those I don't know if Amber would be aware of the fact that her mom has done background checks on everybody that is going to play a prominent role in Amber's life or not, but your mom has definitely done that.
I'm just aware of that, but okay. I think she just, again, assumes that mom knows everything, and so of course she's, knows this person.
Yeah. She asks some cursory questions to make it seem like, oh, who's Eliza? Tell me more about her. What does she do? But But yeah, it's very much kind of a farce because she clearly knows at least the broad strokes. And yeah, I mean, conversation continues kind of normally from there. And if you have any specific questions, now's the time.
Actually, after dinner, she's gonna take her. Well, actually, no, she's just gonna do it in front of her mom anyway. So she's gonna say, "So, Dad, when I was in your waiting for you and Eliza to come back, and I was in your office, I heard a couple of people talking, and one of them was from barrier. Dana's now forgotten the word.
Blockade.
Sorry?
Blockade Securities, yep.
From that Blockade Security company, and they only deal with people with powers, and they thought that someone with powers might be involved. Is this something I should, look into as, not Amber, but Amber?
Your mom is kind of like, she's got things she wants to say about that, but she decides not to. Your dad says, well, I don't know if that's strictly necessary, but he kind of does the look around thing, which is ridiculous because if anybody was spying on you guys, your mom would know. But he still kind of does the check over his shoulder thing, and he kind of leans in and says, if I can tell you a secret, whatever they were there to, the thing they were there to steal wasn't there last night.
Oh, thank goodness.
All the notes were, which is a setback, to be sure. But, I mean, we've got some backups, and we'll be able to piece it back together. But, yeah, the security chief for the lab, my supervisors and I, we all kind of discussed it, and I've actually been storing it here for the last month or so.
Oh, really? Can I see it?
I mean, he kind of looks at your mom, and your mom just kind of she says, nothing I say in this matter is going to make a difference. The two of you never listen to me anyways. Going into the next exchange,
okay.
What would you like to do? Oh, that is okay. So that's another positive aura. So you get to draw a card back.
Alrighty.
So
that is going real well for me today.
Yeah, you can't argue with getting the positive aura draws during a fight. That's a nice thing to run into a string of those. And hey, you've got another agility card and an intellect card. Now this round, you do not have anything to defend against because all the stackatrons are kind of frozen inert as they're kind of rebooting and trying to
right.
fix the system. So that's going to give you basically at least this turn, maybe next turn depending on the aura and the event. But you've got at least one turn where you could do something unimpeded, which could either be get away or if you want to sabotage them more or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, honestly, that might be a bad play, but compiler's not feeling real well right now, and considering that all its memories are of brutal, outsized cartoon vengeance, I think it's just this is what it knows how to do. So, yeah, I think last turn it was able to go in and screw up with those processing systems, move stuff around, rearrange. It wants to try and go in and find those same critical systems now that it's got a moment without being grabbed from all sides. You can just delete those files.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm gonna need this is gonna be computer. Well, theoretically, you could actually directly interface with these guys, so this could just be a straight intellect action.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that makes more sense because computer link is when you're doing it remotely,
right?
I think if you're directly manipulating and interacting with the computer, I think it's computers, or intellect. So yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, makes sense. So let me go ahead and drop that and see what keeps happening.
Oh no.
I was happy about the first one, but this is really
Finally. Okay, so you've got a 10 intellect plus 11, 18,
28, 37. I'm seeing 41 here.
28. Yeah, 41. Okay, so 41. Technically, 40 is an impossible task. In the difficulty scale of the game. So you have gone in and you have completely cleared out like everything that could be considered a critical file, and you've basically like all of the folders have like their contents have just been replaced with a GIF of Rick Astley doing "Never Gonna Give You Up," because I think that's appropriate here, and this is gonna set him back so much. Like he's gonna have to go in and completely reprogram this entire thing, you no longer have these stackatrons to worry about for the foreseeable future. That's just phenomenal. That's just a phenomenal effort.
Now I just really gotta hope I don't need to be smart for the rest of the game.
Yeah, right. Because that's a lot of the intellect cards from.
Because that was the 9 and the 8 and the 7.
Yep, and you put 1 and a 6 earlier, and there was a 5 in there. Yeah. Yep. I'm sure you'll be fine. And so combat's over, so you can go ahead and draw another card if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
To refill your.
I'll certainly not say no.
Hey, there was another intellect card in there. So.
Okay. Whew.
Now here's the question: because you no longer have any threats to worry about here, do you want to do anything with all these, high-tech gizmos and materials that you have at your disposal?
I guess what I would ask, so in the last episode, we talked a little bit about Compiler's living situation, and it's just kind of in an old shack hidden on a college campus.
Yes.
And it does have a computer that it salvaged from the junkyard or something, but with these machines, would there be anything I could salvage to, like, upgrade it, make it a more functional machine, and not, like, a Windows 98 clunker?
You know what? I will even say that you were able to isolate one of the Stackatron minis from the network, and you basically kind of like factory reboot it, and you're able to bring this thing home, and you've got the CPU in it, and you basically have like. You can bring one of these things home and basically have like a little robot butler that is also, a high-powered computer.
Oh, well, now I have to name it.
Exactly. Okay, hold on one second. I'm going to make a quick. Now, I will say these things are not like when they're this small. They're not that. They're not that capable, but. You can always change that by like investing in it over time. So, plus, I mean, with your alchemy power, this little thing could you could turn it into a death ray for a brief period of time if you needed to. Let's see. I'm going to. I'm gonna call it Butlatron for the moment, just until you come up with a name.
Sounds good.
All players, and this is gonna go in the supporting characters folder if you want to look it up to see exactly what it's capable of. It's, again, not much, but...
Yeah.
And at the very least, while you've got it sort of in standby mode, you can use the computer in it.
Oh, yeah,
so
perfect.
Yeah. So, yeah, cool. Unexpected outcome, but I like it.
Yeah.
You've stolen yet another robot from Professor Calamitous.
Oh, boy.
He's not going to be...
So much for diplomacy.
Right? Okay, so yeah, you now have... you have a location for where the communication was coming from between the robot and Professor Calamitous, and it is in a it's in a building sort of on the edge of the city. It used to be like probably back in the 80s. It was a fairly like cutting edge, like not state of the art necessarily, but like very in the 80s. It was a very modern like tech office building. It has since sort of like been abandoned essentially. It's got a perpetual for lease sign out in front of it that's been there for years. And so it's kind of on like this isolated little industrial park, like kind of in the back of it, that nobody really goes to. And Professor Calamitous has probably like technically purchased it in the interim, but that sale probably was like never made really public, or he went in and like basically transferred the ownership into his name, just for legal reasons. But it still looks like an abandoned building. This is kind of his thing. Is like he doesn't really do any like high profile, high tech headquarters. He prefers to use buildings that look like they're not in use, and then he just renovates the interior heavily.
Yeah, the science guy equivalent of an abandoned amusement park.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. That's the building that he's in. Well, that the communication came from, anyways.
Yeah, I guess before taking off, I will double check those old brooms just to make sure the Stacotrons weren't like lying about whether the doctor was here or not.
No, not lying. They are like you go through and kind of like disengage the locks, open the doors, and it's just a couple different partially finished experiments of various natures.
Okay, then yeah, I suppose it's time to head back over to the next building. And I'm tempted to just walk in, because that does seem to be the way Compiler does things, but I don't know. Since I broke all those robots.
It's that lack of subterfuge that Compiler has. Compiler's just like, well, I mean, clearly the most direct... The shortest distance between things is a direct line, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's very... Compiler very much believes that basically any problem can be solved by appropriate negotiation, but that's mostly, I think, because in Calamitous' memories, all of his, like, supervillainy and plots and plans were just, well, I didn't have to blow it up if they had just given me the key to the city.
That's true. Yeah.
I think that's where it gets its instincts from.
So Compiler, like Professor Calamitous, sees himself as eminently reasonable.
Yeah, and I don't even know for sure that it isn't. It's just that's where it gets that instinct, right? We can work this out, and all you have to do is give me everything I'm asking for.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't preclude me giving the things you're asking for, but
exactly, yeah.
Okay. I like this thought process. All right, so yeah, you can just walk up if you want.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to go with this. It's maybe a bad idea after destroying the Stacotrons, but I said I didn't want to fight, and they did anyway, so that's not my fault.
That's true. They did bring this on themselves. going to draw a card to see what the... Okay. Yeah, you're not familiar with this particular location. However, you sort of, you do the assessment. Like, what do I know about Calamitous? What do I know about the way he's sort of like outfitted these layers, these labs of his in the past?
Right.
And you, so you assume you know what's going to happen and what you're going to face. However, I think you're going to be surprised when... Let's see, do any of these make sense? No, not really. Yeah, I think this one makes the most sense. So, you know Calamitous pretty well. Of course, the drawback is that he knows you pretty well. And he knows that your, like, the capabilities that he built you with are particularly good against artificial, like, protections, like
right.
Robots and, lasers and death traps and stuff like that. However, he also knows that what they're not as good against is organics. And so he has arranged to have a little bit of extra security on his side. As you approach the building, the front door opens, and out strolls a very confident woman that is... She has like kind of shoulder length black hair, and she's wearing basically like moderately high-tech armor. Like, it doesn't have like blasters built into it or anything like that, but it's very clearly like ultra modern, like very cutting edge, very expensive body armor. And she's got a helmet that she kind of like puts on. She kind of like tucks her hair up underneath it. She puts this helmet on and like lowers the visor over her face, and she puts her hand out, and like this arc of electricity kind of like travels from her shoulder down to her hand. And she says in a voice, it's somewhat amplified, that clearly there's like some sort of like a megaphone or something like that kind of built into the helmet. She says, "I'm afraid you aren't allowed to be here."
That's most unfortunate. I was having a conversation with the good professor earlier, and it made it seem like he was willing to negotiate.
Well, apparently that's changed, because I've been hired to keep you out. So I think it would probably be for the best if you were to turn around and leave.
I see.
Personally, I don't really relish the idea of getting into a fight in order to complete my contract, but that's the job. So
the job, complete your contract. What are the terms? Are you simply to prevent me from entering the premises?
That's the gist of it.
This seems a difficult needle to thread, but I think we can make this work.